So much to bring you this afternoon, but let's start here with Rangers, and their search for a new manager continues after Steven Gerrard rejected the chance to return to the club. Let's head to Ibrox right now. Speak live to our reporter, Gordon Duncan. Good morning to you, or good afternoon to you once again, Gordon. So, no Gerrard. Who is it then that Rangers will turn to?
Yeah, the search very much goes on. The Rangers fans probably thought they were edging towards Steven Gerrard, and now they're taking new names under consideration. Rangers, of course, had more names in the frame than just Steven Gerrard, and it feels like Danny Röhl is the one that is attracting most of the interest currently for a number of reasons. First and foremost, he has been spoken to this time around. We understand those talks went fairly well, the former Sheffield Wednesday manager. It's also worth bearing in mind he was in the frame when Russell Martin was appointed to the role back in the summer. It goes without saying, if the Rangers hierarchy drew up a list of candidates, then it probably follows that not that much has changed in a few months, and people like Danny Röhl would remain under consideration and has been spoken to this time around. Other names that are being linked with the job currently: Michael Carrick, former Middlesbrough boss, of course, available and would be an interesting one perhaps to keep an eye on. Kieran McKenna, the current manager of Ipswich, though, just won Championship Manager of the Month, didn't he? So maybe tempting him away could prove to be a challenge if indeed Rangers wanted to. Thinking back to that list previously that was around in the summer, Gary O'Neill was a name mentioned, and the likes of Graham Potter. If you bracket those two together, because we don't believe they will end up on Rangers' final shortlist. So it's going to be a really crucial few days coming up. Danny Röhl feels like the name that most people are discussing this morning, but he is just one of a number of names that Rangers are looking to as they search for that appointment, now that we know that it will not be Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and of course the hierarchy at Rangers will want to get it right, won't they, Gordon? But how soon do they want to bring someone in, do you think?
Yeah, it's an age-old balancing act, isn't it, about taking whatever time you need to get the right person, but also wanting to do it fairly quickly. Rangers had this entire international break. Remember, Russell Martin was relieved of his duties late on the Sunday night after the game against Falkirk. They play here against Dundee United on Saturday. I do think it's worth considering the specific mood around Rangers, though, and how this is a bit different from any other club. There is a pressure here really to get this right because of how unpopular Russell Martin was to begin with, and then the fact that it was a fairly unsuccessful short spell that he had. Add into the mix the fact that the popular fan choice was Steven Gerrard, and it feels like the mood amongst the fans towards the club is in a really delicate place. So the Rangers hierarchy, obviously, like every club, could do with getting this appointment right, but I think it would do them a favour to have someone in the dugout for the game against Dundee United on Saturday. So watch this space over the coming days. Yeah, we will be. Just a note on the fans, though, because you say, you know, they'd be disappointed, they'd be frustrated with the fact that Steven Gerrard, who they wanted to take the job, will now not be taking the job. Do we know why Gerrard pulled out? Is it any reflection of the Rangers hierarchy at all? Glasgow is one of the most cynical footballing parts of the world, so I think lots of Rangers fans are waking up this morning and wondering if that is the case, and wondering whether Steven Gerrard could fit as a head coach into Rangers' current structure, which has a sporting director. It's a different structure to the one which he left previously when he was the manager. However, like I say, maybe there is an element of cynicism, an element of speculation attached to that. Maybe that's something that can be scrutinised in further detail as time passes. We understand there is a timing issue on Steven Gerrard's side. The talks were constructive, they were amicable, they took part on Thursday and Friday. Both parties flew to London, but in the end, a timing issue is the reason that we believe has been the ultimate stumbling block for now. But you're right about the disappointment. We were here every day last week expecting, maybe not expecting Steven Gerrard, that's too strong a word, but it felt like it was heading in that direction in the eyes of the fans. The number of fans who drove past here and were beeping the horn and shouting out the window and telling us they wanted Steven Gerrard. So for that not to be happening, I think has left a real feeling of disappointment for the Rangers fans. And back to what we said earlier, that puts extra pressure on the decision makers here to get this appointment right. Yeah, they really do need to get this one right, don't they? Thank you for the moment. OK, let's get more on Rangers then, shall we? Because the Sunday Times chief football writer, Jonathan Northcross, thinks that Danny Röhl would be a good choice to take over at Ibrox.
The big issue, of course, is how much the supporters who've been, pretty quick to voice their discontent and make their feelings known about Russell Martin. So it's a kind of mobilised fan base. Wanted Steven Gerrard. So the next person, whoever it is, has got to sell the fact that they're not Steven Gerrard. I think it's interesting when he role being really high up on the shortlist the last time. He's had an outstanding career for a young coach. If you look at the job he did at Sheffield Wednesday, which was a really difficult situation. So talk about walking into a club that's got issues and a fan base that haven't been happy. I mean, he mobilised that whole club